Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Salesforce with Megan. For those that are new here, I talk about everything Salesforce, tech, and career growth. So if those topics are interesting to you, go ahead and click the subscribe button. I post weekly vlogs. So without further ado, I am doing something a little bit different this week. I'm actually interviewing my former mentor and somebody very special to me as I've grown in the Salesforce industry. So without further ado, I am going to get right into the interview. Enjoy, guys. All right, so hi everybody, welcome back to Salesforce with Megan. Today I am bringing in a special guest. His name is Luis, and we used to work at Torrent Consulting together for our consulting firm. And I thought it would be a terrific idea to bring him in and talk about his developer and architect experience. So without further ado, I am just going to go ahead and let Luis introduce himself and also his Salesforce journey.
Thank you, Megan. So good to see you and be a part of your blog. So, hello everyone. My name is Luis Chinchilla. I am currently located in Guate, Guatemala. So, yeah, you guys should come here. I actually started my Salesforce journey around 2017, rather. So I had graduated from a university in the US. I had a scholarship to go to the US from 2012 to 2016. I attended college in Arkansas, and I had a major in managed information systems and management. So when I came back to Guate in 2016, I actually started working for a non-for-profit. Did not do anything with technology. I was just leading teams in the missionary field. But I kind of felt that calling to the corporate world, if you will. And I started looking for a job to use my technology knowledge to some use. And so I started implementing software at banks and things like that. And then all of a sudden, one of the missionaries that I had worked with knew about a company that was going to be starting an office in Guate. The first time I had ever heard of that company. It was also the first time I had ever heard about Salesforce. I did know about CRMs, but I had never heard about Salesforce until that day. And so I showed up to Antigua, which is the city where the office is currently located. I showed up to Antigua, walk in the room, and there's just, this person that is wanting to hire technical people for their company, and the technology that they're working with is Salesforce. And so after that day, I started researching what Salesforce was because I had no idea what it was. Instead of finding answers, I had even more questions, like how was this going to work? What types of clients were we going to work with? Was I even up to the challenge of, software implementation to Salesforce implementation or Salesforce development? So it was just a really interesting change for me, because I think when I was in college, I thought that I was going to be looking for jobs in an IT department as a database manager or querying information, generating reports in Excel spreadsheets and things like that. And then all of a sudden, Salesforce comes into the picture, and this whole new world of opportunities and doors opens up before me, and it's just been a great journey. So, yeah, glad to be here and share that with you guys.
Can you just kind of walk us through a day or maybe even a week in your life? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So currently I'm a Salesforce solution architect at Torrent. When I started back in 2017, I started off as an analyst, so no experience whatsoever in Salesforce. I did, I think, about 2 or 3 months of onboarding, just getting to know the platform, really, digging trailhead, trying to find information in there that would help me. And I actually didn't start this journey alone. I think it was really helpful. So two other people started with me at the same time, starting to learn Salesforce without any experience in the platform whatsoever. And so, the three of us would come together and try to figure out each other's issues. And I think it was just an interesting part of the journey that while you were learning it, there were other people along with you learning it as well. And not just, in a company that you work for, but in the ecosystem overall. There's people at different points in their career, and there may be people that are right there with you, or people who are a little bit ahead of you that can help you. And so that that I have found really helpful and really nice about Salesforce, which is something that I have not seen in any other ecosystem or platform. But then after that, I got some experience with clients, started working as an analyst, fields, layouts, the really like simple stuff, if you will, started building some of that. And then I was pulled into a position where I became an internal admin for the company. And it was just like, I was thinking to myself, this is way out of, where I'm supposed to be. Like, I should not be doing this. There are more capable people who could be doing this. Why me? And so I started to see it as an opportunity to level up, to gather more experience in different areas. And that's actually the project where I started to get some of that Apex development experience, because there were some development needs. We didn't have any developers that we could free up to do these customizations. And so I had mentioned that I knew about code, that I could do it, I could try to venture into it. And so I started to build out some cool pieces. And again, I was never alone in all of that. I had people who I could go and do a code check with them, or people who would guide me into how to structure it. So I think that was the project that gave me a lot of experience from that Apex side of the world and outer components and things like that. So then after that, I started to gain more experience, or I was pulled into projects where my involvement in the client interaction was more. And so I became a senior analyst, and then after that, a solution architect. And I think between the senior analyst role and the solution architect role, the complexity of the project has increased, of course, and then the sense of responsibility that you're architecturing not just Sales Cloud at this point, but if the client ever decides to include Service Cloud or Pardot or Marketing Cloud, like it becomes about the holistic view of the platform, right? It's not just about the single product that you're building today or the solution that you're implementing today, but how that can be integrated for the needs of the business in the future. So a typical week for me, is often packed with meetings, with client meetings. So I'm not going to lie, we do have a lot of client meetings. I currently work with 5 clients on a single week. And it is very challenging, very fast paced. And one of the things that I think I enjoy about that, while it is challenging, is the fact that I get to experience different industries. I think not just Salesforce, but the consulting space overall gives you the industry experience in different industries. And so I think that is one of the things that I love about Salesforce, that it's not just for an industry specific type of company, but it can be applied to any types of businesses. So, from client meetings to internal syncs to having solution design sessions with the team. Because one of the things that I have enjoyed from my journey and the people who have surrounded me is, I've never felt alone, and I've always had people to support me when I'm learning new things or implementing new things. So I try to incorporate that as I've gone up the ladder a little bit to bring others along, because it's helpful for people to get that experience, in a safe space before they're actually thrown in the fire with a client, for example. So. And it's not just around meetings, but it's also about solutioning and building. So those are the 2 pieces that I get the most joy out of, like being able to build, being able to, get in there and figure out, get an error, get it stuck, get unstuck. Those are the pieces that I actually do enjoy a lot. And with all things considered, once I'm in the zone, it's really difficult for me to jump into something else, say a client meeting or an internal sync, and then try to come back to that zone. So those are the challenges sometimes on a week-to-week basis. But then, being able to deliver to the client on a demo, and it's so refreshing, so rewarding when you can see their expressions and they're like, yes, that's exactly what we needed. or even when sometimes we get feedback around, maybe we can do it in a different way, like this is not necessarily the path that we wanted to go with. So that's definitely it's always a learning experience, I think.
Perfect, Luis. Thank you. And I have to say, from when we worked at Torrent, one thing that I have noticed, even, being a consultant now, is that no matter what, there's always somebody that's going to know something and then somebody who doesn't. But you have such a great support team to always fall back on. And I think that's honestly one of the best parts about Salesforce. So the next question that I had for you, you kind of touched on it, but I wanted to ask, as an architect and as you play a developer role too, it seems like you do have a lot of interaction with the client. Can you kind of walk me through, along with a week in your life, like how often are you interacting with clients? Is it more than you expected? And what have you really learned from that?
Yeah, it's a very great question. I think in my experience, it depends, of course, on the type of methodology that your company or that you're implementing for the project or client that you're working with. Mm-hmm. But currently today, for me, I'm working with 5 clients, and it also depends on your role. Because if you're in the role that schedules the meetings, then you could spread them out throughout the week, so that it's not as fast paced as you want it to. But I would say that every day, at least one, face-to-face or on a call interaction with the client. And it could be from, a solutioning session or a discovery session to a demo or, a feedback session. And so I think it with Salesforce, there's a lot of involvement that our teams get with the client, because we're trying to figure out how to customize this already built platform to their needs. And so there has to be a lot of conversation, a lot of back and forth and refinement to be able to get to that point where they can take it on and use it. I think Salesforce has been built so that we can customize it to fit the needs of the customer, regardless of what industry or what those needs are. The amazing thing, I think, is in those client interactions, you get to share a lot of moments with different types of personalities, and that's also really good from the ecosystem as well, because you're not just working with people in the sales team. You get to work with folks in the marketing team, internal tech team, and so you get a lot of personalities when you're trying to do a Salesforce project, because there's a lot of pieces from a business that touch it, depending on the process that you're trying to implement. So I do enjoy that piece. For me personally, getting to interact with people is one of the things I enjoy the most, because I think if I was a full-time developer and all I did was code, I would personally not get a lot of joy out of that. But I know that there are people who do, and there's also a place for them in the ecosystem as well.
100% agree with you. I think one of the best things about working in Salesforce is that you don't just touch on, depending on your role, of course, as a consultant, but you don't just touch on one industry. You get the excitement of actually seeing all the industries and working with the sales department, the service department, marketing team, and even sometimes all 3. So that's pretty fun. Now, another question I had for you is that for those people that are new to Salesforce or just thinking about it in general, if they were to come in with no coding experience and they had the option of taking the Admin 201 exam or not taking it, what would be your suggestion to them, based on your experience and what you've been through so far?
Yeah, I would say run away. No, just kidding. No, I think, from my personal experience, I think some of the best Salesforce developers that I have had the pleasure to work with have a good understanding of how the point and click configuration works. And the reason behind that is they know, in a big scheme or from a holistic view, they know the limitations and the advantages of using point and click configuration. Yep. But I think the biggest piece is they know the limitation. So they know when to go into that custom development piece inside Salesforce. And so I think focusing entirely on the code from the get-go might be, a little, might be holding you from understanding the view of the platform in general. And so I would say if you do think about going the developer route within Salesforce and you're wanting or desiring to skip the known coding portion, I would say, take a second thought, maybe try to venture a little bit. If you absolutely don't like it, then of course follow your heart. But if you're willing to be a little bit more open, I think starting with the point and click configuration, getting to understand the platform from a non-developer perspective is going to definitely give you a very good perspective on how to better build solutions when you are actually developing.
I agree with you. So as Luis said, pretty much just run away, but just kidding. No, and I think that goes into, when you work with multiple industries, it's also really important to understand the business process of it. And as long as I've known Luis, he's always been great as his developer side and his architect side, but he's also been terrific at just dealing with customers and understanding them and really stepping back and saying, okay, you want this, but why do you want this? And I believe that he's terrific at just breaking down, what the customer wants. But I think that goes into, when you become a consultant, you play multiple roles. So kind of bring us into, being a consultant, you're an architect, you're coding experience for developer side. Just kind of walk us through what strengths and what you have gained from, playing all those roles throughout the years.
Yeah, I actually really love that question because I think when you get started in Salesforce, you think about an admin or a developer, right? And maybe those are the only two roles that you think about. But as you progress in your Salesforce knowledge and your Salesforce career, you kind of understand that there are more levels, like there are, more roles or hats that you could be wearing. And so it's really important to get the most out of each role as you're progressing, because I think, looking back to when I was an analyst, I was basically just taking tasks, right? Like just building, like give me a list of things that I need to do, point and click configuration, and I will do it. And I was mainly focusing on doing that. When I became a senior analyst, it was more around like, all right, you're going to be a part of the solution. Like, what do you think is the best way to build this portion? And then depending on the team, right, and the structure of the project that you're implementing, you're going to get to interact and hear different perspectives of how a solution could be built out. And I personally would say that there is no one single best solution for a particular process, but there are solutions that are more efficient than others. And so always keeping that in mind as you're, thinking about the way that you're going to go to implement something for a client is always a good thing to consider. I think one of the things that really came into play when I started to play this consultant role was the industry experience, being able to understand business and how when a customer is explaining, a certain process that they do, it's not just because that's the way that they've been doing it. They have a reason for how they're doing things, and sometimes when they're working with you, they know you have had experience with other industries, and so they're also looking to get some best practices. Like, is the way that we're doing the process right now the best way that we could be doing it? And we're implementing Salesforce, so like, what else could we leverage from the platform to help us in our process? So I think that has definitely been a key piece. It's definitely a challenge to come up with a best practice approach that you can tell them. But it definitely comes with experience. And so as you're preparing to venture into this Salesforce world, I think not just focusing on the technical aspect, but leveraging the knowledge from the industry, the clients that you're working with, the processes that you're helping them implement in the platform, is going to give you a really well-rounded understanding of business and platform. And I think that's definitely going to put you in a really good position wherever you go.
Absolutely, 100% agree. So you also have another question coming up, and it's exactly what you just covered, kind of. So you have a lot of people coming into the Salesforce industry. Salesforce is preparing to fill a lot of jobs for companies out there looking to implement it. So with that being said, you have people that are transitioning from IT backgrounds. You have people who have been out of the workforce for a while. You have recent college graduates. I mean, the list can truly go on of those that are becoming interested in Salesforce, and they're coming from all industries at that. So the key question here is, if somebody came up to you and said, "Hey, Luis, I've heard about Salesforce. I'm really excited about it," what would you tell somebody that is ultimately interested in Salesforce?
Wow, that's there's a lot of pressure there, right? Because whatever you say, regardless of who it is, you can either nurture their dream or kill it. So I think you have to be, I would have to be really careful, because my belief is that there is a place for everyone. And the skills that, someone like me, someone like Megan has gained over our years of experience can be learned. These skills can be learned. And so I think the first thing would be, do not be afraid. There are going to be times where, as you start to research and search answers for your questions, you're gonna find certain types of walls in your understanding, because it's new, right? It's new technology, it's a new industry, depending on the role or opportunity that has opened up for you, there's gonna be always something new. So don't be afraid. The second one would be, first of all, understand what a CRM is and why Salesforce fits into that category. And then the third thing would be, Salesforce is not just a CRM, it's a platform, right? And so as you continue to progress in your understanding and knowledge around the ecosystem, you will see that there are a lot more things than just CRM functionality. And so stay hungry for learning, because there is not going to be a point in your Salesforce journey where you know it all. Salesforce is continually releasing updates for functionality that's currently being used today. And I have to say, some of the things that I knew how they worked back in 2017, they work, but they're not working the same way. There's different ways to configure them. So Salesforce does a really good job to keep you on your toes in terms of what you know. There's always going to be something to learn, and there's most likely always going to be someone who knows how that works that you can ask those questions to.
I love your answer. So just for some context between Luis's relationship and I, when I started at the previous company, he was actually my mentor, and I came in with a strong business understanding and project management. But one of the most difficult things to learn was actually the technical side. And I'm talking about automations here. And when Luis says that there's always somebody that is there to teach you and take their time with you and actually care for you to understand and move forward, he's not lying. He took the absolute time almost every day for the first month. Not gonna lie there. But he's on the dot with what he's saying. Every time that Salesforce has something released, stay hungry to learn. I think that's one of the biggest factors and attributes that people come into Salesforce with. They want to learn, they want to pursue their own path, and Salesforce gives you that ability. So absolutely 100% right. So Luis, the final question I have for you is, what makes you stay with Salesforce?
Yeah, I try to be as transparent with anyone I'm talking to, because I think, particularly for me, living in Guate, and having experienced college in the US, there's always been this tension of, should I stay, should I go, should I try something else? But I think Salesforce has opened up a huge portion of opportunities. I think how to start with, like, why did this company, started to open up an office in Guate, and why was that, technology that they were working with Salesforce? And it's just Salesforce provides a platform for people to get opportunities. And so I honestly want to be a part of that. We've seen, lives being transformed with the platform, and people who have not had any experience, or people who don't have opportunities, have been able to start to learn the platform. I mean, some of my dearest friends in the company that I currently work for, had it not been for the company opening up an office, or even Salesforce existing, they would not be where they are today, right? Having the opportunity to get a job in the technology industry, where they're working with clients, implementing systems. It's just a world of opportunities. When I hear Salesforce figures for the future, it's such a, it's a mind-blowing count of opportunities that people could tap into. And I think the only thing that may be holding people from is the fear of new experiences. And so I have to repeat, do not be afraid, because the journey is not going to be an alone journey. There's always going to be people surrounding that learning experience. And I think I have found a community where I feel supported and loved and cared for.